The projection flickered twice, then locked. Across the chamber wall, human script materialized in a hand so uneven it could not have been machine-produced. The translator pulsed, cycled, pulsed again. Beneath the text, its output field displayed a single status line that Wraith had never seen in 40 years of archival work. Language recognized. Translation. Unavalub. His fire glands went cold. The sulfur smell hit him first. Not the sterile cold of the archive chamber, but the old layered sulfur of the Academy's entrance hall, baked into stone over centuries. Wraith had tasted it on the back of his tongue 3 days earlier, stepping through the main gate as a visiting scholar for the first time since his retirement. The Academy had changed less than he expected. Same carved walls, same firelit sconces throwing copper light across battle histories etched so deep into the stone you could press a claw into them and feel the grooves left by sculptors dead 9,000 years. Same heat radiating from the walls, the geothermal veins beneath the foundation keeping the corridors at a temperature that would have killed most galactic species in minutes. Wraith folded his wings closer to his back, a reflex. Civilian life had softened the old postures. His fire glands pulsed their low orange at the base of his throat, a visible rhythm he'd long stopped being self-conscious about, that second heartbeat other species found unsettling. He had been invited to review a new acquisition, Earth's military archives, declassified and donated to the Flame Council's academic exchange program. Weapons systems, force deployment records, strategic doctrine. The sort of material a warrior culture turned diplomatic could appreciate from a comfortable analytical distance. The first 2 days confirmed expectations. Human projectile weapons were clever, their nuclear capabilities sobering. Yath cataloged tactical patterns, noted the expected escalation curves, cross-referenced delivery systems against known galactic equivalents. Impressive, thorough, nothing that rewrote his understanding of violence. He'd studied 11 species' military histories. Humans slotted neatly into the mid-tier category, dangerous, adaptable, not yet remarkable. On the third morning, he opened the cultural subsection by accident, which meant his afternoon changed completely. The archive's indexing system had buried art, music, and poetry inside the tactical files, not alongside them. Wraith almost skipped the subsection entirely, assuming a clerical error, but the file count was enormous. Thousands of entries, paintings, poems, compositions, all classified under the same heading as weapons deployment reports. He opened the first painting, a human battlefield rendered in oils, bodies in mud, a sky the color of burning fuel, and at the center, a single figure carrying another through smoke so thick the artist must have painted it from memory or not at all. It was beautiful. Around him, the archive chamber sat cold and dark, projection light the only illumination. His fire glands pulsed once, slow. Why was art in a war archive? He opened the next file, and the next. Poems written in trenches, sketches made during sieges, letters to people who would never read them, composed hours before the writers stopped existing. The volume was staggering. Not a handful of anomalies, but a systematic, culture-wide practice of creating beauty at the precise moment destruction was most certain. Wraith sat back. His wings shifted. Not the old military fold, but the loose half-spread of a civilian who has forgotten anyone might be watching. If you've been wondering where this story leads, stay with us. There's a sound coming that changes everything. He selected an audio file. Battle music, the archive labeled it. Pre-combat motivational composition. Western Front, circa 1916. He pressed play and the chamber filled with sound. Strings first, then brass building in layers. The melody climbed in a way that reminded him of thermals over the scorch fields back home. That feeling of rising without effort. Heat doing the work. But beneath the rising lines something heavier pulled. A counter-melody that dragged downward even as the primary theme soared. Two directions at once. Joy and weight occupying the same measure. Wraith realized his fire glands had gone fully bright, both throat vents pulsing hard orange, casting light across the chamber walls like a second set of sconces. He hadn't noticed. The music stopped. The silence had texture, pressing against his eardrums, not absence of sound, but presence of something that consumed sound, a silence that was hungry. Wraith's throat vents dimmed to their lowest register, barely aglow. The chamber felt different. Same walls, same cold projection equipment, same recycled air carrying that faint metallic undertaste archive chambers always had. But the space the music had occupied was not empty. It was reshaped. The silence after was not the silence before, and his scholar's mind understood this, the way a physicist understands gravity, not by seeing it, but by watching what it bends. He sat in that bent silence for a long time. Then he pulled up the species comparison files and began running numbers, because numbers were safe. Dracori fire glands consumed roughly 2% of total metabolic energy. Standard. The brain, slightly less. He ran the human equivalent and stopped scrolling. 20%. A human brain, 2% of body mass consumed 20% of total metabolic energy. 10 times the proportional energy expenditure of any other organ. Their thinking apparatus was, by any reasonable biological standard, an engine running beyond tolerances. And they aimed that engine at everything, including the experience of killing and dying. The art was not decoration. It was not a cultural luxury filed in the wrong folder. It was the inevitable output of a species that burned 10 times more energy thinking about destruction than any species burned actually performing it. They didn't just wage war. They processed it, interpreted it, transformed it into melody and pigment and verse, and filed the results next to the weapons that caused the need for processing in the first place. Wraith's claws tightened against the console. A species without fire glands had invented napalm. He reread the entry 3 times. Napalm, an adhesive compound that burned on contact with air and could not be extinguished with water. They couldn't breathe fire, so they built it. They engineered it to stick. He almost laughed. Almost. The sound that came out was closer to the low, clicking Dracori made when cornered. And now, back at the projection wall, with the handwritten note still hovering in that flat archival light, the translator's failure meant something different. He had spent 3 days assuming the note was corrupted, or written in a dead dialect the system lacked data for, but the translator had recognized the language. The failure wasn't identification. The failure was output. The words were a poem written by a human soldier before a battle, and the emotional density packed into those lines exceeded the translator's processing capacity. Not encrypted, not coded. One human being had felt so much, compressed so much terror and grief and defiance into so few words, that the translation matrix broke trying to carry it across. The most dangerous object in the archive was not a weapon schematic. Wraith read the note again in its original script, understanding none of the words and all of the weight. His fire glands pulsed their slow orange against the dark chamber. Somewhere in the text, a human had written something true enough to shatter a machine built for 10,000 languages. He thought about the line carved above the Academy's oldest gate, the one every Dracori student touched on their first day. Every species reaches the fire. Most are consumed. We learn to carry it. The Dracori had always read those words as a tribute to themselves, to their glands, their ancient wars, their long mastery of what burned. Humans had never grown fire glands. They had no internal flame, so they carried it anyway in napalm canisters and oil paintings and poems dense enough to crack a translator. They knew exactly what they were. That was the terrifying part. Not ignorance, knowledge. They had looked at the fire, understood it completely, and picked it up with bare hands. 3 years later, Wraith's monograph on human combat art integration was required reading at the Academy. He never translated the note. He kept the original file open on his personal console, the handwritten script still hovering in pale light, the translator's status line still reading language reconnaissed. Translation unavailable. He left it that way on purpose. Some things worked better as questions than as answers, and the faint orange glow of his fire glands, pulsing in the dark of his study at home, had never quite returned to its old rhythm. We'll be here tomorrow with another story from the archives. Come back, and bring that silence with you. It's a different kind of quiet now, isn't it?